Let's tell you more about hypocrisy. This story features the European Union. They're struggling with the migrant crisis. Most of these migrants come from Africa, so the EU decided to hire a bouncer, not a person or a group, but an entire country. Europe decided to pay Tunisia to keep migrants out. Now, Tunisia is a North African country. It's where most migrants gather to leave for Europe. The EU promised them money to stop these migrants. Now, Tunisia is playing hardball. Their president is a man called Kais Saied. Yesterday, he played his hand. He refused to take funding from Europe. He said it wasn't enough money. And his refusal threatens to aggravate Europe's crisis. You see, Tunisia holds the key to stemming the migrant flow. It's an important transit country along with neighboring Libya. Hundreds of migrants leave Tunisian shores every day, hoping to cross the Mediterranean into Europe. These migrants are overwhelming the continent, and Tunisia is using them as human bargaining chips with the EU. Their president wants money from Europe. He calls it development fund. Critics say it will only consolidate his autocratic rule. But Europe turned a blind eye to this criticism. They wanted to keep the migrants away. Democracy could wait. So in the month of June this year, the EU agreed to a deal. They promised to send almost $1 billion in aid to Tunisia.
The European Commission is considering macrofinancial assistance as soon as the necessary agreement is found. And we are ready to mobilise up to €900 million for this purpose of macrofinancial assistance. As an immediate step, we could provide an additional up to €150 million in budget support right now.
President Saied was supposed to stop migrants, prevent them from using Tunisia as a departure point for Europe. In exchange, he would get the money. This was the deal. It was a simple, if morally questionable transaction. Because Saied has been accused of weakening democracy, of jailing his opponents, and of concentrating power with himself. The usual moves of a dictator. The kind of stuff that Europe is quick to slam. They lecture the world about democratic values, but in this case, Europe did not care. They wanted his help to stem the flow of migrants, and they were willing to pay the autocrat for his services. Saied, on his part, has been smart about all of this. He's balancing the migrant deal with domestic opinion. He has not directly said that he's helping Europe.
Tunisia could not guard borders other than its own, and we do not accept becoming a settlement country.
He says Tunisia will only guard its own borders. But then he cracks down on migrants in the country.
We were lying down and suddenly saw the police arrive to take us away. We started running. We didn't know where to go.
Tunisia has used inhumane methods to deal with migrants, like rounding them up and leaving them at the border with Libya. But again, it seems Europe doesn't care. In July, European leaders signed a strategic partnership with Tunisia. Then last month, Europe announced the first tranche of funding.
Announcing 60 million in budget support for Tunisia and an operational assistance package on migration worth around €67 million, which will be dispersed in the coming days, contracted and delivered swiftly.
She announced roughly $133 million worth of funding. About $63 million was for budget support. And that's where the deal seems to have soured. In June, Europe had promised almost $1 billion in assistance. You can imagine that Saied was not happy with a meager $63 million. Yesterday, he decided to reject the package. He said, and I'm quoting here, Tunisia rejects what the EU announced not because of the small amount, but because the proposal conflicts with the Memorandum of Understanding signed in July. His statement puts Europe in a bind because illegal migration is breaking records. Hundreds of thousands have arrived at Europe's door this year. They climb into ramshackle boats in northern Africa, brave the dangers of the Mediterranean Sea, and then land in southern Europe, usually countries like Italy or Malta.
If you see Africans here, it's because we all have one thing in mind. It's to cross the Mediterranean.
Last month, we showed you the chaos unfolding in Italy, how thousands overwhelmed the island of Lampedusa. The migrant numbers have reduced since then, but they've not stopped. Now, if Saied does not cooperate, chances are they will rise again. Europe knows this. The question is, what will they do about it? Will they fold under pressure? Will Europe let Saied dictate the terms? We'll keep you posted as this story develops.